please welcome Timo Airaksinen.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. I've been working recently on desires. I have a Tekes project on that, and as my main interest, I thought that I might try to apply these ideas to the robotic world and the world of future. As we know, future is radically open. We don't know anything about the future really. It's a tricky epistemological question really, but so we can speculate quite freely. And this presentation consists of the speculative part, the robot part, cyborg part, and then some knowledge about desires and emotions. It's quite clear to me that many people underestimate the difficulty of applying or creating emotions and desires in machines. If we are successful with the cognitive functions and logical functions of machines, it doesn't follow that we know how to handle desires and emotions, the non-cognitive factors. Anyway, couple of words. Words first. There are robots that are workers. Of course, we all know that the word robot comes from the Slavic word robota, means work, and labor, sort of real work. I mean work, not work here, but real work. Čapek's Czech author Karel Čapek wrote a book on robots who robotka workers. We have androids, the science fiction dream of human-like robots that look like humans, that you cannot say if they are humans or not humans. If I'm an Andy, you cannot tell. How do you tell that I'm not an Andy? Version 2, second version, Timo. It's possible. Not very likely though. Anyway, Timo is not responsible for what I'm saying. We have cyborgs and cybernetics. Norbert Wiener's idea of the steering systems, helmsman idea, where you have feedback loops that keep the feedback, regulate the behavior of artificial systems so that they keep their equilibrium. So feedback loops, like a thermostat. There are not too many. There are all kinds of examples, most of them trivial, like a feedback loop that controls the temperature of this room or humidity sometimes, which is a kind of thermostat, keeps the status quo, a conservative idea in that sense. No change, just status quo and equilibrium, an optimal state that is kept through the feedback loops. Then we have, of course, and cyborgs are part human, part artificial creatures whose life and function is based on these feedback loops, so that they stay in an optimal state of equilibrium. That's a very narrow definition of cyborg. Normally, it seems that we have a transhumanist version of cyborg. We have a heavily enhanced human beings, technologically enhanced human beings that are cyborgs. But it's clearly a great difference if you have a pacemaker or an artificial hip. I mean, hip bone, worn out hip bone can be replaced with a fancy metal joint, or have a pacemaker which keeps my ticker ticking, and that is a feedback loop, optimal state function, and the hip just sits there. But if you think that we are heavily technologically modified by means of feedback loop systems and other technological enhancements, we can call ourselves cyborgs in a transhumanistic version, or trans-cyborgs, perhaps, like a Robocop. My great hero is Robocop. Don't laugh. I mean, it changed my life. The movie changed my life, really. It's a deep truth there. I was especially impressed that his ethics is so firm and solid, and his sense of justice is inviolable, meaning that they kept his ethics function going. Well, they modified his brain and everything. He's totally modified. He's very clumsy, though, so that's disturbing. He should move in a more agile way. Anyway, and then avatars, of course, in digital virtual worlds. I try to have time to say something about that in the end of this short lecture. But let me first pay attention to this Claude Shannon's The Ultimate Machine, which is another really deep invention. This is Arthur C. Clarke's, the science fiction writer's story. Notice how good a writer he is. He's a splendid writer, really professional writer. There's a really great gap between amateur writers and professional writers. It's disturbing. Nothing could be simpler. It is merely a small wooden casket, the size and shape of a cigar box, with a single switch on one face. When you throw the switch, there is an angry, purposeful buzzing. The lid slowly rises, and from beneath it emerges a hand. The hand reaches down, turns the switch off, and retreats into the box. With the finality of a closed coffin, the lid snaps shut. The buzzing ceases, and a peace reigns once more. The psychological effect, if you do not know what to expect, is devastating. There is something unspeakably sinister about a machine that does nothing, absolutely nothing, except switch itself off. And it's great, really. Here, some psychoanalytic writers have said that this is a suicide machine, that the machine commits a suicide. And here you see Arthur C. Clarke also mentioned a closing coffin, and a casket and coffin. It's a reference, indirect reference to death and dying. But the machine is not dying, it's just sleeping. It's just a lazy machine. It's not suicidal. It switches itself off, but you can wake the machine up again by again throwing the switch. And the hand will come again and click the switch and come back. And you can play the game continuously. So the machine is just sleeping, it's just lazy, it doesn't want to do anything. It's a self-referential machine. Its only function is, its purpose is not to function. Its only function is not to function. And it's an angry buzz. It's angry. It doesn't want to do that, see? It is as if it desires. It desires peace and quiet, and it buzzes angrily when you make it do that one act it can do. To switch itself off. It's a wonderful machine. Because it seems to have a purpose in life. It seems to have emotions and seems to have a goal. And perhaps we can even say the machine is happy when it's sleeping. It rests in peace until you disturb it. Then it gets angry and it acts according to its desire to go back to sleep. I mean, this very simple system seems to show all kinds of emotions. But those are, of course, projections. We humans are very good at projecting our own feelings and thought into the world where they do not belong. It's notorious, for instance, in the case of animals and pets especially. Pet lovers see wonderful things in their pets. It's just gripping to see what a cat lover can see in a cat. Or dogs, or even horses. It's unbelievable. But this box is much more satisfying than the cat or dog. Especially if you're allergic to animals. Anyway. The machine is longing for an equilibrium, peace and quiet. Is this desire? I explain you some ideas about desires, just to show how far we are from ever understanding machine desires or robot desires, and then I show you in which sense the artificial world can have desires and what we perhaps can expect. Desire requires a thought. That's not very difficult. I think of Peter. I think of Peter, who is my enemy. I mean, this is sort of brutal example, sort of television example. Peter is my enemy. I think of that. Then I imagine the time when Peter is dead. I notice that it's a highly satisfying piece of imagination. Dead Peter. Then I imagine myself killing Peter. Oh, how wonderful. I really feel good about that. So there is this thought and a narrative, imaginative narrative. I tell a story to myself about Peter's character, what Peter has done, what I would do to Peter, and how I would feel when I have done to Peter what I should do to Peter, namely kill him. I mean, in a painful manner. And I find it highly satisfying. So I want to do that. I have a desire to do that. And notice that I need an imagination which is a narrative. And it's a complex narrative. It's not only the narrative about Peter as a dead body, but also a narrative about what Peter is like, what I could do, and how I would react when Peter is dead. So it's a complicated story about the whole scenario. And I decide that what what is the object, the end state of this process, or the end point of the narrative, the goal of the narrative is highly satisfying. It's satisfying. In which sense satisfying? What makes it satisfying? In this case, it's perhaps the value. There are some values behind it. In this case, the value might be a power-related value. But I show you. We need to come back to emotions, but I show this. In this kind of revenge story, the basic value is a power, social power-based idea. The value here is social power. It's not hedonistic value, really. It's not really a hedonistic pleasure to hurt the other guy, but it's a power. The balance of power is re-established when I get my revenge, and it's this value that I can realize that makes my story so satisfying, my narrative so satisfying to myself. In other words, you can also understand this scenario by means of the possible worlds. This place has no whiteboard, so I would like to draw a nice figure, but it's technically impossible here. Anyway, I'm in this world, in this actual world, where I feel it's terrible that Peter still exists. I'm very uncomfortable in this world because Peter exists. I can imagine a better world than this actual world, a better possible world where Peter doesn't exist. And then I can specify this second world by saying it's a world where Peter doesn't exist because in that world I killed him. And the police never knew about that. So there's no harm to me in this best possible world that I can imagine. There is Peter dead, I did it, and the police never found out who did it. So that's the ideal world. Then I try to figure out, is there a path from this actual world to this second possible world? It is possible, it's ontologically possible world, it can exist. There's nothing contradictory in this second world. But is there a path from here to there? And why not? I can go and kill Peter. Why couldn't I? I just take my shotgun and go and meet Peter. And Peter will meet his maker at the same time. So there is a path from here to there. It's an accessible possible world. And this accessible possible world is better than the actual world, so I want to go there. That's what I desire. I want to move over to this second possible world, which is better, because there the balance of power is reestablished. Now, then of course I need a good reason to do that. I have all kinds of desires that I might realize, I might do, but I need a reason to do that. For instance, the police force is in strike, I have a new shotgun, and Peter is in town. So now I have a good reason to go and do it, so I can realize my dream. We also have many just empty wishes. These revenges are often empty wishes. I realize that I will never have a good reason to do that. I realize that I'm mentally or even physically unable to do that. So it's a mere empty wish that I entertain every now and then, either painfully or pleasantly, it depends. So that's why I say that desire is an imagination-based narrative which focuses on an attractive goal which promises happiness. And the goal is either a possible world or this world which is better than its alternatives. Often, when you read literature on desires, it's often the case that people, the authors, focus on the better possible world where I want to go from here to there. But very often I want to stay in this possible world, this actual world, because I don't see any possible worlds that would be better than this world. So I want to stay here. I tell you, it's lovely here. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm happy where I am. I want to be here. So the desire for status quo, that's also possible and very common. Many people want to be exactly where they are, and that's a desire, not to go somewhere, kind of negative, conservative desire. I just wanted to remark on that to make this presentation more complete. Nothing follows from it, really. This world, which is better than any of its alternative worlds. Then, when we go back to emotions, let's go back to emotions. What is an emotion? Can machines have and express emotions? My old boring point has been that emotions are often bodily states, or they require a bodily state. And if you have a body like this, flesh and bones and hair, how could a steel drum behave similarly? If your robot has a steel body, how can the steel body be afraid? When a human person panics, the hair stands up, your pupils are enlarged and open up. You have cold sweat. You break into cold sweat. You tremble a little bit, and so on. These bodily reactions are extremely important. You cannot have certain types of emotions without a living body. You need something that trembles, shivers. You need hair that stands up. Of course, you have different emotions too. Emotion is a wonderful category, so broad and ambiguous. Think of jealousy, for instance. Let's say I'm a very jealous man. When you tell me about my spouse's infidelity, I go into rage. I'm angry. How do you tell if I'm angry, just angry, or jealous? Because anger you can tell by looking at me. Oh boy, is he angry? But you cannot just look at me and say that I'm jealous. Ah, he's jealous. I need to talk about that. Jealousy is a verbal emotion. I say, I hate that person. She did that to me again. He must be jealous. You make an inference on the basis of how I describe the situation, how I do it. But if I'm angry, and I say, oh, I'm angry, you say, yes, I know. I can see you angry. But if I say I'm jealous, you cannot say, yes, I can see that you are jealous. You cannot see that I'm jealous. Jealous is a higher order emotion, which is based on narratives that you understand, that I know how to tell and you know how to understand. Let me have a sort of side remark here about happiness. A person is happy. There's one theory of happiness is that you are happy if you get what you want. If you get all you want always, you are a very happy person. That theory is also already very clearly presented and defined in Plato's Symposium, where Diotima, who is a wise woman, speaks with Socrates and tells Socrates the fact that a person who gets what he or she wants, what she desires, is a happy person. At least you cannot complain if you get what you want, and then you're happy. This kind of, think of brain researchers. Brain research. They stimulate a part of your brain here. They stimulate my hand, let's say so. They scratch my hand a little bit. Show me a nice picture of girls and cars, or wine bottles. And then a certain brain area lights up, blink, and then they ask me, how do you feel now? I say, I feel so good. Okay, that's happiness, right? That's happiness. This is a happiness center in your head. Now they know what happiness is. Happiness is what lights up in your brain when we do this. I mean, what kind of happiness is this supposed to be? It is happiness only in a Pickwickian sense. In a Pickwickian sense, that's a Dickens, in Dickens' Pickwick books. They have this way of speaking, the Pickwickians, that his happiness in a Pickwickian sense is that it's happiness in that sense that I want it to be happiness. That's how I define happiness. If I say, this is a foot, this is my foot. No, it's not a foot. Yeah, it's my foot in the Pickwickian sense. I call this a foot. And, it's a foot. Yes, from now on this is a foot in a Pickwickian sense. In the same way, happiness in my brain is happiness in a Pickwickian sense because I have decided to call it happiness. And if I'm powerful enough and convincing enough, you start following my way of talking about happiness. It's in a Pickwickian sense. Same applies with desires, like this, the ultimate machine. The ultimate machine wants something. The ultimate machine is happy when it goes back to sleep. The ultimate machine is angry. Yes, they are angry. Not even in an analogous sense, but in a Pickwickian sense, because we like to speak in those terms. Fine. You can do that. But then there are the real things, real desires, like my desire to kill Peter and do whatever it takes to do that. And I'm sure that I will be happy afterwards. I will be satisfied and happy in the real sense of the word. Before we jump from the psychological context back to the technological context, we may watch a little bit of film.
Non, je n'ai pas peur. Enfin, pas comme vous croyez. D'ailleurs, vous n'en savez rien.
Soyez assurés que mes décisions auront toujours en vue le bien final. sécurité.
Non, allez-y.
Vous arrivez des pays extérieurs. Qu'avez-vous éprouvé en traversant les espaces galaxiques?
Le silence de ces espaces infinis m'a effrayé.
Quel est le privilège des morts?
Ne plus mourir.
Savez-vous ce qui transforme la nuit en lumière?
La poésie.
Quelle est votre religion?
Je crois aux données immédiates de la conscience.
Est-ce que vous faites une différence entre les principes mystérieux de la connaissance et ceux de l'amour?
À mon avis, en amour, il n'y a justement pas de mystère.
Vous ne dites pas la vérité.
Je ne comprends pas.
Vous dissimulez certaines choses.
J'admets que je pourrais avoir des raisons de mentir, mais comment faites-vous pour différencier le mensonge de la vérité?
Vous dissimulez certaines choses. Mais je ne sais pas encore quoi exactement. Donc, pour l'instant, vous êtes libre. Je voudrais que vous visitiez mes installations de contrôle.
Venez avec moi, M. Johnson.
Occupé, libre, occupé, libre,
Où est-ce qu'on va?
occupé,
Chez l'ingénieur en chef.
occupé. Occupé, occupé, libre, libre, occupé.
Allez-y, monsieur.
There's no mystery of love, you know. So that must be the crucial point. It's a wonderful, wonderful film, Alphaville, and Lemmy Caution. That's the best. There's only one better science fiction film that I know. That's the Dark Star. You know Dark Star? You should. It's a wonderful. It ends when they discuss with the bomb. The bomb wants to explode in the wrong place, nuclear device, and the pilots say that you shouldn't explode because I have my directions, says the bomb, and they tell the bomb that how do you know that the directions are valid, that you might be alone in the universe, they are your own inventions, these directions and rules. And the bomb says, I must think about that, and goes back to the bomb bay. And then he gets an idea, let there be light. He thinks that if he's alone in the universe, he must be God. And what God did when he was alone, he created the world by fiat. So he says, let there be light. And the only way to make light is to explode. So the bomb explodes, and it's a catastrophe. That film was made by philosophy graduate students who had just had Philosophy 101, where they discussed Descartes. It's a sad story, but it's a good film. Anyway, that's related to Turing test, certainly that film. That's another bad idea, really, that tell me about your dreams, my dear misprint, about your wishes and desires. You love him, why is he so attractive? If you ask that, if the machine asks that of us, it's easy to answer. We can always answer these questions. There's no mystery of love. You can easily answer these questions. What are your wishes and desires? Why you love him? Why do you love her? Nothing is more natural. But you cannot ask that of a machine, or from a machine. The machine breaks down like the voice, the computer in Alphaville. It breaks down when he tries to think about these things because he or she must realize that it's beyond his capacity. A Turing test is, of course, a silly idea. It's a silly idea, and of course, a programmer who prepares his system for this test can easily add some lines, standard lines, that answer these questions, like tell me about your wishes and desires. That I want to be a millionaire and fly to Bangkok today. Okay, that's fine. That sounds like a human desire. Why do you love him? He's so handsome and so gentle, and he has so wonderful bright eyes, and he's rich and has a good background, and blah blah blah. That's wonderful, really. The standard answers that may fool anybody. But if you dig deeper, if you ask more questions about desires and love, approach is as a mystery, and then the machine must admit it's a mystery, but we don't. We can explain, we can talk about love and desire forever, because basically love, happiness and desire are literary topics. It's all about literature or poetry, and we can talk forever on that. The problem here is what my British friends once when they were in nasty, or the London friends actually, when they were in a nasty mood, they said the poverty of their desires, meaning the British working class, the poverty of their desires, meaning that working class males have only 3 stereotypical desires. That's beer, football and sex. Beer, football and sex. And if you have no other desires, your desires are poor. And in this sense, if we presume that the machine has only very poor desires, then the Turing test won't reveal that it is a machine. But if we think of rich desires, if you have read enough novels and poetry and watched good and bad films, then the world of your desire is so deep, so complicated, so contradictory, so weird, that you can talk about that forever. Beer, football and sex, well, you can talk about them forever too, but then you start repeating yourself. It's a question of repetition and non-repetition. Poor desires are repetitive. It's always the same story. I met this person and I had sex with him, blah, blah, blah. Then I drank so much beer that I don't remember anything. I had a good fight afterwards. A repetition. And the rich desires are non-repetitive, unpredictable, often ultimately strange. They make good novels. In this context, the standard example is Don Quixote. Cervantes, Don Quixote, who wants to be a wandering knight, and tells these incredibly complicated ideas how he will save fair maidens and make brave deeds all over central Spain. That's a standard example. Now let's go forward. How can technological things, technological creations then have desires? Of course, cyborgs can have desires if they are partly human and partly technological. That's clear, right? Because however well enhanced we are, however much technological weight we carry with us, we still have our human mind, at least partially intact. And as long as it is a human mind, it has the power to desire, want, and have emotions. So the simple solution is simply that the cyborg, who is half machine, half human, has the technologically enhanced abilities that may be sort of Robocop abilities, and then the human frailties. I mean, the frailties have the human aspect of emotion and desire. Here I would like to draw a distinction between two things, a narrow and a broad version of cyborgs. That's an old distinction. I suppose that I have this faint memory that Donna Haraway was the source of my ideas about the broad version of cyborgs. The narrow version is simply a technologically enhanced individual. There may be only one cyborg in this world, myself. You are all natural. You are all natural human beings, you guys. But I'm a heavily modified android-like cyborg. I'm so well done that you don't see the difference, but how I see you is totally different than what you see in my case. When you look at me, you see this. When I see you, I see something totally different because my eyesight is not like yours. It's robotic. It's something else. But I'm not interested in that. That's not very interesting. It's a very simple solution that I am half machine, half person, and then I combine these two aspects, and I have my desires. Perhaps a little bit different than your desires, but full-fledged desires anyway. The broad notion is what is interesting, because that means we have an individual and her techno environments, like an airport. Sometimes I wonder why I have this always the same example, airport. That's my favorite example. It's of a technological, machine-like, inhuman environment that is a sort of cyber environment, a huge airport. I'm in a real big airport, not like Turku airport that is still a place for human beings. But Helsinki airport is middling. But really sort of Schiphol or in Amsterdam or Copenhagen airport or Frankfurt in Europe. Just wonderful places. I find them so fascinating. Anyway, let's say I'm partly modified. I have some cyborg features but that's not really essential. I may have some sensors on some chips under my chin, and I may have sort of my senses may be modified, and my brain functions controlled by some feedback loops. But anyway, the important thing is that the environment is totally artificial, a big machine. Airport is a wonderful thing. There's one railway that goes in, and one highway. There's a huge parking garages, the forecourts of hell. You leave your car there, you enter the gate where they say, he who enters may, whatever it is, you may have no hope anymore. You check in, you show your credentials, and that you have paid. That's very important. You have paid, and then you get a ticket. Then you enter with the ticket the gate of hell, the big gate, and then you go through a system. You stand there, and they see you naked. That's the first step. For us Finns, it's nothing. We are used to being naked in sauna, really. It doesn't matter, but for the post-Victorian English speakers, it might be a real hell when they think that they stand there and somebody's watching. Look at that. And then they check all your parcels, that you don't have liquids, you don't have metals, you don't have blades, you have nothing. So that they strip you naked first. Then you may enter the main place. And you know that you are under surveillance all the time. You know that they are watching you, but you don't know who is watching you and why they are watching you. They count you. You are counted. You are classified. You are observed all the time. And you're supposed to go through the airport from here to there and leave. I mean, that's the systems that keep there are these systems that keep this organization in balance. How many people enter here? How many people leave from the other end? The logistical systems are automated, and then these huge conveyor belts take your luggage in and out, and the human beings are just like ants that are directed along this pathway here, that pathway there, and you stand in line. No jokes, please. They have a sign there. No human features should be displayed. No jokes, no personal behavior. It's all suspicious. I once walked to an airport and said that, in America, I said, I want one ticket to New York. You have a reservation? She asked. I said, no. One way? Yes. Hey, Mary, we have a case here. And then they grab me, take me behind the screen, and start asking questions and touching me. I wasn't very delighted. I said that at least you should have said my name and not just a case. I became a case because I misbehaved. One-way ticket bought at the airport means that you are grade 1 suspect. They may nowadays torture you because of that, be warned. You lose a couple of fingernails very quickly. Or they waterboard you. They like that. So do it in the right way. Know where you are. And then there's this aspect of desire and happiness there, highly regulated. There are shops. You're supposed to enjoy shopping and drink some overpriced beer. That's okay. And that's supposed to make the travel enjoyable. You can satisfy your desires there. Namely, there are shops and there are some discount prices there, so you can buy cheap stuff. And there's alcohol there, even some cigars, so you can satisfy your lust there. But very poor desires, poverty of desires. The only fun that is available there is shopping. You can buy something. And if that is not poor desire, nothing is. That is the poorest of the poor desires, to go somewhere and buy something. I sometimes buy something there, just. We can have emotions and desires at the airport. And the point is, of course, that in the end, the whole world will be one big airport. We enter when we are born. We enter in a maternity clinic in extremely high scale, high scale technological environment. We are technologically born and we die technologically, except if it's a car crash or something like that. And you shouldn't do that. It's against the rules to die in a car crash because it's not technological enough. It's primitive technology that kills you. You should die in a hospital, connected to all kinds of feedback loops. Then you are real cyborg. You're all one with an environment, technological environment that is solely made of feedback loops that try to keep your final equilibrium going. And then you may pray that they switch the machinery off, that you can die, but they don't. They don't like the idea. They might give you the switch, of course. I mean, if they are really here, you do it yourself. Thank you. Then you are the ultimate machine, right? We are back to the ultimate machine. You switch yourself off, and then you are happy. Ultimately, I mean, in the end, in this world where we enter from other end, where the maternity clinic door is the gate to hell, and in the end is the gate to paradise, namely the morgue. It's the gate to paradise, and in the end you are cyborgs because of the cyborg environment in this world, where you are modified to be properly adjusted to this artificial environment. Where what do you desire? Your desires are dynamic equilibrium. You live in harmony with this environment. You really want to live in harmony with this environment, like at the airport. You just want to behave there in order to be able to go through. I mean, you just want to go through, and that's why you want to live part of this airport equilibrium, technologically created equilibrium. Efficiency. You want to go through quickly and harmlessly. You don't want trouble. You really don't want trouble at the airport. Or here. Effectiveness. The system has only one purpose: to get rid of you. You march through the airport and the system is only designed to get rid of you. They put you into a plane and out it goes, and everybody is happy. And pleasure. In what sense pleasure? I mean, that's a deep question. What is the pleasure of traveling? It is some kind of pleasure. We are perverted, at least I'm perverted enough to enjoy that. I'm ashamed of myself. I would like to change. I need therapy. I enjoy traveling. I shouldn't. I know that I shouldn't. But somehow I'm a well-adjusted person who has been training this ability to enjoy traveling for a long, long time, and I'm doomed. I shouldn't. But those are the desires. Instrumental, boring, narrow, poor, no joy, no individuality, just a mass of flesh and bones and hairs going through. Blind, mute, no jokes, please. Everything you say can be used against you in court. My favorite joke is the guy who goes to the airport and his friend Jack is there. Hi, Jack. Famous last words. Hi, Jack. They kill you immediately, by the way. There's always an armed guard in American planes, and they shoot. Keep your mouth shut. The final and perhaps least horrifying way of enjoying life in post-technological cyborg environment is avatars. The original word seems to be the messenger of Shiva. In Hindu religion, Shiva is the lord of destruction, and when Shiva incarnates in the world, is Shiva's avatar who comes to among us and starts doing what Shiva does best, namely destroying world, like some kind of primitive Oppenheimer who said that I'm the destroyer of worlds, and that's wonderful folk hero, isn't it? I'm the destroyer of worlds, the Shiva's avatar. We have these avatars that I can send in the virtual digital worlds where your desires will be unlimited. If your desires are poor here and now, when your avatar goes out, do you have any reason to think that this avatar's desires are very rich, complicated, wonderful narratives, or what might be the case? Because avatars can go to worlds, possible worlds, where you have no access. There's absolutely no access for you in that kind of sex that avatars can have in the virtual digital world. You just put these magical gloves on and your spectacles and your hearing implants, and you start doing things. Here again, if life is boring, narrow, technologically conditioned, not allowing very rich imagination, not rich narratives of desire, then what you have in the digital world, in the world of games, is what? It's warfare. When I listen to the radio, they say that the Chinese armed forces are financing and supporting Chinese game industry. And that's wonderful, because then the army guarantees that the sounds of weapons are authentic. And perhaps also the sound of a bullet hitting flesh is authentic. I can just imagine the high-power rifle hitting my belly button, and how my belly explodes. I mean, how does it sound? How do you get the sound right in this game? If you get it right, it's much better, isn't it? Not just splash or splat or something like that, but the real sound. Boom. I have no idea how it sounds, but the Chinese will get it right very soon. Then I start playing myself. Perhaps I'm wrong. I'm sorry I wrote this. I say that now the limiting factor is no longer your own imagination, somebody's imagination. If you want to have, I mean, that's probably wrong. I always change my mind, you know. It's probably wrong if your desire narratives are narrow and boring and poor. So is your avatar too in this virtual world. They say that there are sophisticated games where you can construct worlds and business games and not only these sort of kill, bang, bang, bang games, or driving a car and crashing and driving again and crashing, and that sort of sophisticated world-building games. That is true, but that requires that your sense of imagination, your ability to imagine, your ability to tell desired narratives is somehow at least intact or developed. So you can enjoy these things because they are your own. If the desire is to push a button, I mean by this that you have large systems, you just push a button, I like. Tykkään. That's just a wonderful Finnish word. It's much better than I like, it's tykkään. It's sort of childish, baby talk. Timo tykkää namista. Bing. Timo likes candy, and I push a button, and they show me candy. I'm happy, right? It makes me happy. And then they measure my happiness by counting the numbers of I like reactions. I wander around, and everywhere where I go, there's a like and not like. I push a button, like, and then bing, happy man. Every time I see these things, they often monitor the services and railway stations and other places in shops by means of these little tablets where they have like, I don't know, dislike buttons. I always push the dislike button as a matter of principle. Whatever happens, it's always the dislike button, the grim. But somehow I get this satisfaction out of it, really. I feel more like being alive when I push the I don't like. I hate. The hate button would be nice, really. I mean, I truly hate you. I want to kill you button. That would be absolutely super. But I never push the I like button. Tykkää nappia. Timo likes this button. No, not for me. But anyway, this is the best way. I mean, it's a wonderful idea, really, that you can launch yourself into another world without responsibility, without fear, without hesitation. That's the ultimate liberation of your desires. That you can go into this possible world that is purely fictional, purely virtual, purely constructed, and then come back clean. There's no responsibility. Because desires are funny things. Normally, desires are always connected with anxiety. If you think of religion, look at this tower there, the greatest tower in Finland. Church, for instance. There's enormous pressure to control our desires. All education, all religion, all ethics are there just to control our desires. Part of this control is in terms of ethics and reason. You shouldn't drink all the booze you would like to drink because it makes you sick. Well, I can understand that. But you shouldn't drink the booze because it's sinful and God wouldn't like it. And the God will punish you in hell if you drink too much booze, because then you forget God and you don't do right things. I mean, this narrative is sort of strange. Sexual behavior. It's all anxiety-ridden. It's all terrible. I mean, you want to do that, and then you feel you are responsible, and even the idea drives you crazy. You feel so guilty, so dirty, so vulnerable when you're dreaming of horrible, wrong, perverted things. And now this avatar is clean and pure, innocent, just entertaining himself in this possible world, doing whatever the person likes, and then you comes back and you go back to work. I mean, that was just a lunch break, and then you go back to work. Would this be so? I mean, many people, educators would say, for instance, if I play these unlimited games in the virtual world, I can realize all my desires, whatever I develop, whatever I imagine, whatever the narrative is, I can do it in this part of the virtual world. Would it stain and tarnish my this self as well? And psychologists have said that it will tarnish you. These horrible images ruin your life afterwards. Some people say that you are innocent anyway. It's just the avatar who is tarnished, not you, and you can live your life normally. Even you can get rid of these sort of secret vices of yours by playing them out in this artificial world, and then you are free and liberated. I have no idea how to answer that. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a simple philosopher. I could open the discussion now, and we have some 15 minutes or so to discuss if you have points.
Thank you very much for your lecture, Professor Timo Airaksinen. I just want to emphasize that your major argument was for the broad notion of cyborg, right? Because in this limited sense, cyborg meant a human organism that is somehow connected to machine. But your thesis is that we should think about technological environment as a part
the enhancements are outside.
Yes.
In a narrow sense, I am modified, but in the broad sense, the environment is modified, and I live as a part of that modified environment, which makes me part of a technological system.
And
that's the point.
How does that then affect to our desires? Because you gave a hint that there's this capitalist system of desires in an airport, like people want to buy something. So is this economical logic that it is affecting our desires, or is there something else also?
If the desires are narratives, as I said, desires are complicated narratives. And in that kind of technological environment, there's no room for those narratives. They are meaningless in that kind of environment. about love and lust and revenge and self-education or learning and whatever. You may have all kinds of narratives that are possible, but which don't fit the environment. It's kind of educationally, it's a kind of hidden curriculum. It's an old and important left-wing idea in the philosophy of education that whatever you teach me, there's always a hidden curriculum that is the real source of learning. And in that sense, when you go through the airport, when you know how to go through the airport, that's a curriculum. They teach you how to go through the airport. But then there's this hidden curriculum, what you really learn. Namely, you learn to control your desires. You learn to control your imagination. You learn how to shut down your emotional and cognitive systems. You just become a robot that goes through there. And some desires are allowed. For instance, the shopping desire, or desire to be nice to authorities or something like that. And that's the hidden curriculum that we learn when we are educated in that kind of environment. That's the point. There's this hidden learning. And after 20 years at an airport, you don't have very complicated desires. You don't suffer anymore. You are free. You're free of yourself. You just do what should be done. I mean, you are not like a Lemmy Caution in that film, who has all kinds of wrong answers to these questions, who is unable to play the game. And that's why the system short circuits and self-destroys. Okay, sorry.
So any questions? Yeah. Kathleen?
Thank you for that. A number of things. I think the robot is a very, very important object to think about today, because when it was invented in the 20s, like everybody knows, it wasn't a machine. It was about a human being that was denied feeling, and it was on discovering their feeling that they kind of rebelled against the system. So a couple of things about desire. There seems to be a lot of contemporary psychological work today that's saying adult desire is a byproduct of repressed childhood trauma. And in fact,
repressed what?
Childhood trauma.
Okay, fine.
So basically, adult mental health issues, perversions, addictions are not something that occur as a result of being an adult, but they're repressed consequences of a disturbed childhood. That's one thing about desire. And the second thing is about this, well, what is the virtual world? Because an issue I'm grappling with at the minute is, I don't believe in fiction and I don't believe in fact. I mean, they're totally, if you read Dante, put himself in his own, the Divine Comedy, and most of the people who he didn't like in Italy at the time, you can't say that is a work of fiction, although he also has a red-headed man who lives in the ninth circle of hell. There's something going on in the way in which we characterize our experiences in the world, which unfortunately are divided into one or the other. So interestingly, in the virtual world, it's a bit like in the Republic by Plato, because he opposed poetry because he didn't like the way that the poets were misrepresenting, the kind of gallant heroes, and he only wanted one perception of gallant heroes, so he disliked poetry. And we can see that again today. We now have a virtual world. No, you can't actually go into Second Life and have sex with children. It's elite, it's prohibited. You can create children avatars, but you can't. And so I do not believe we have really clearly understood what it means reality and what it really means fiction. And I think we need to have that kind of genuine discussion through these kinds of topics.
So your point was, you had 2 points, I suppose, that
one is adult desires.
Adult desires are results of childhood traumas.
Yes.
So if I don't have any traumas, I don't have desires. I can rest in peace.
If you have something, you'll be authentic. That's the idea. In fact, your desires are driven by your repressed trauma.
Yeah, as I see it, if you may, is that if your desires are trauma-based, they carry some kind of stigma with them, and they are self-contradictory. They hurt. They are self-destructive. There's something wrong with these stories. They are like a TV program today. There's something wrong with them. They're disturbing somehow. They are not natural. But then there must be good desires too. Sort of natural, nice, creative, wonderful desires that I really don't know. But the trauma the trauma-based desires must be somehow wrong. And the second, what was the second point?
It was about how there's no clear differentiation between...
The fiction, fact and fiction. Yeah, that's an old story in the philosophy of science, of course, that all scientific objects, for instance, scientific objects are somehow constructed and ad hoc created to satisfy the demands and desires of science, really. I agree that there's no clear line between fact and fiction. It is a artificial distinction. But at the same time, my point was only that desires are based on narratives. Facts are based on narratives, and fiction is based on narrative. So it's a common denominator is really the concept of a narrative. Some of your narratives or desire can be fact-based. That I really want to have a good dinner tonight. There's plenty of fact there. That's true and factually based and possible. It is possible. And then I have these crazy desires that I want to be a famous poet, for instance. One day I will be a famous poet. That is not fact-based, but it's just a dream, just fiction. Okay.
Frey.
Yeah, thank you for your superb and highly stimulating presentation. What interested me most is your narrative on power. You kept all the time, most of the time, talking about power-related desire, then social power, then desire to re-establish balance of power, then desire for a better world. What is behind all this line of thinking and line of expliciting some sort of future?
What about power and equilibrium?
Power, social power, better world.
I would like to speak about sex.
What is your narrative behind?
I would like to speak about sex, but I thought it's not appropriate here, really. The only reason why I spoke about power is that I cannot speak about sex. I don't know. You need to psychoanalyze me, really. I'm not the right person to answer that. I'm kind of Nietzschean point, really. Perhaps I was kind of Nietzschean today. That is this restless desire for power. That everything in the human world is about power in a broad sense, or Michel Foucault type of approach that is power everywhere. But I really don't know. It's just I hope it was just a coincidence.
Okay, thank you very much. And this day has been very amazing from the beginning. Kevin Warwick told to us some new ideas how we can, how our mind in a way can be out of ourselves in the other
reality.
in our other reality. And then I think is there coming a new paradigm in a way. Descartes told us that body and mind, they are different, they are depart. And then there came Damasio, neuroscientist, who told that we are very complicated, that body and mind are in the way the same. And you told that emotions need our body. It's very important. And then the like airport, in a way limits our emotions from our body, as I understood.
Sure.
So I'm wondering what's coming after Damasios and others thinking, is there some mixed Descartes and Damasio, and is it more near in a way Descartes? Can we limit our mind in a way?
Yeah, what comes next? I think that there's this great divide between dualism and monism. And Descartes was, of course, a dualist. There are two substances, body and mind, where mind is extended and then mind is pure thinking. And then we have these monistic theories, which one of the first was Thomas Hobbes, 1550, around, where there's only matter. There's only one type of substance, and then all mental phenomena are just epiphenomena, or the emergent phenomena on the basis of this, of the function of this one substance. I don't think there's an alternative. That's it. Our philosophical categorization of these systems, it's that, and there's nothing else. But at the same time, the future is open. Perhaps one day some mad genius comes up and figures out the third way, or totally new way of understanding emotions and thinking. It seems to be that it's a dead end. Even the monism seems to be a dead end. It's very, very strange question to ask about freedom of the mind, consciousness, thoughts, desires, mental discourse. We are in the dark, and maybe that both sides, both a dualist and monistic theory should be thrown out, and something totally new is needed. But what would it be? I mean, you figure that out.
Yes, it's.
I cannot.
It's quite typical that that kind of dualist theory will be in trouble to explain that how there is connection between mind and body.
Sure, yeah.
And then, on the other hand, monist theories are in that kind of like danger to collapse in reductionism, so that they reduce all mental intelligence to matter and to causal explanations. So both paradigms seem somehow problematic now.
Yeah, that's the example I was used. Monism is good, really. So, I mean, less problematic than dualism. But anyway, you drill my skull open, and then you watch me desire, watch me think. Because if thoughts are brain functions, then you can watch me think. Which is not really it's not very convincing that you can see my thought. Look at that thought. No, it won't do that. I mean, that won't do that. Something else is needed.
So you've been talking about individuals' desires. What about social shared desires and the box that closes itself? does it have the desire of its builder actually?
Yeah, sure,
and are
sure.
computers, are machines and robots able to come up with desires?
Yeah, okay, the first part, I only addressed the first part. Socially constructed desires. This René Girard is the French theoretician, literary critic, and religious man who talks about mimesis, or mimesis, mimetic desires. Namely, all our desires are copies. We don't have individual desires, but we copy each other's desires. If we have individual personal desires that are totally disconnected from the social world, we are mad and crazy and schizophrenic, and we die. This is all about mimesis. We copy our desires. We always want the same thing that our friends and reference group has. And this is quite a powerful theory, really. And when you look around and you think about that, you notice that the depressing fact that these desires are highly mimetic. They are copies. We follow each other. We are dogs. We are not cats. We copy our desires from sources which are social.
I'm interested when the process of this ecology with the technology and human man or woman started from your point of view. Is it the description what you did already is something like the Catholic made some arguments against printing?
Please make it simple and repeat the question.
When does this combination with the human and technology started from your point of view?
When did it start?
Yeah.
Well, the first technology became available. Really.
And it's fire.
The dream has always been there, like a dream of flying or doing things with technology. I really don't know the history that well. I cannot answer. That has always been, tools. Whenever human beings are using tools, that's the beginning of the dream, really. Once there's a tool, there's a cyborg, really.
Okay, thank you. Then we always have been a cyborg.
Always.